Hello, hope everyone is doing well today. My name is Artie Astor from Artie Astor Music. I am doing another episode of B Sharp and C, and this episode is about Mark Knopfler. Who is Mark Knopfler? Well, he is the front man, or was the front man, for the band Dire Straits. If you're anything close to my age, these next two songs define what Dire Straits was back in the 80s. I mean, am I right? That song was super famous. You probably also know about this next song. So I'm not wrong, right? You know now clearly who Dire Straits was. They were actually super famous back in the 80s. They started off in the late 70s, I think 78, 79. They came up with, I think, their self-titled album and then another album. I don't know if the second one was Communique. I forget the order of the albums, but they came out in the late 70s with something raw, something different, and something that was an amalgam of a creative genius, Mark Knopfler, who was enamored with the American West, blues, jazz, right? Bebop, all that stuff. And he came up with his own style in the late 70s that really to this day no one has really copied it. The songwriting style, the guitar playing style, it just hasn't been copied. But why am I doing an episode about Mark Knopfler? It's really not about Mark Knopfler. It's about a side project he did in the late 80s, early 90s. And I believe this album, Missing, Presumed Having a Good Time, was released in 1990. So a lot of people, a lot of Mark Knopfler fans would say that this album came out in 1990, that this project called the Notting Hillbillies was a 1990 type of project, but it was really in the works in the late 80s and early 90s, but with people that he had come in contact with and with people that worked with him on some Dire Straits albums, like Paul Franklin, probably one of the best pedal steel guitar players you will ever hear. He's done work with Leanne Rimes and other country greats. And I don't know if I've ever heard someone make a pedal steel guitar sound as melodically beautiful and almost hauntingly beautiful, like Paul Franklin does. Honestly, the closest I've heard to the style, not necessarily the mechanics, because Paul Franklin is head and shoulders above everybody when it comes to his ability to play the pedal steel guitar. But the notes he chooses to play, the tones he chooses to create with that beautiful instrument is very reminiscent of late 70s Pink Floyd. And then of course, like Dark Side of the Moon type of thing and other stuff that David Gilmour did when he played the pedal steel guitar. Um, Focusing on more of a haunting sound with it and less of a twangy country sound that we usually equate the pedal steel guitar with. We think of country, right? At any rate, I want to play this song. It's a project that Mark Knopfler did in, we'll say, 1990, just for to keep things simple. This is a song called Your Own Sweet Way. And in so many ways, this song is one of my favorite songs ever put together. And for a plethora of reasons, if not just simply for the fact that it's beautiful. The chord changes are very simple, but the music and the expression that's played over the chord changes is just breathtakingly, hauntingly beautiful. It's kind of broken down in two parts, and they did that on purpose, and it's kind of separated by like the bass line almost. You know, at one point the bass line changes and kind of goes into a walking bass line type of thing. And really, the synergy between the guitar, pedal steel guitar, and organ. And to this day, I really haven't heard something like it. Written in a style of almost like a Southern Gothic or an outlaw type country. So let's give a listen to the song. I'll stop it a few times as I always do. Let's give a listen to the song Your Own Sweet Way, written and performed by the Notting Hillbillies. You're going to hear the pedal steel guitar when it comes in, and it's not what you expect. It is not a country type of pedal steel guitar. It's just hauntingly beautiful. It's eerie.
There's nothing I can do.
That's the pedal steel guitar.
Nothing I can say. You do what you want to. Go your own sweet way. You'll go your own sweet way. You'll go your own sweet way. Now I can talk till you see it. I can talk to you at night. But when it comes to love, you won't take good advice. You'll go your own sweet way. Yeah, you'll go your own sweet.
So right away, and I'm going to talk before we get into the pedal steel guitar solo, and there's a lot of pedal steel guitar featured in this song. There's a lot of guitar. It's Mark Knopfler, and there's a lot of organ. Um, I think I just heard thunder outside. Anyways, Mark Knopfler throughout this song, he plays with no pick, so you can usually hear the way he does the finger picking on with his fingers, you know. But he's singing this song. It's kind of like this weird, um, dark 40s jazz style mixed with like Southern Gothic style. But then when he does a riff on the guitar, it's almost straight out of the blues scale, which I just think is really cool. So he just the song is an amalgam of different genres, so much so that it's really kind of difficult to classify it in one genre because there's so much mixing going on between the genres. I love it. But and I love the backing vocals coming in on Your Own Sweet Way, right? It just sounds so nice. I don't know why, it just does. And I love the type of reverb they're using and the amount of reverb they're using on the main vocal track too with Mark Knopfler. I think that is reminiscent of a lot of that dark, soulful kind of earlier jazz, right? That dark, soulful jazz with the high reverb you hear in a lot of old jazz classics.
Your own sweet way.
Ah, that was not a simple pedal steel guitar solo. The note choice was impeccable. The tone was amazing. The control was amazing. The feel was amazing. Again, Paul Franklin is playing this outside of the genre that usually features the pedal steel guitar, which is basically country music, American country, right? This is not your basic traditional country song. And he's adding this the sense of airiness to the song by playing this pedal steel guitar, kind of like the beginning of Dark Side of the Moon, where Dave Gilmour does that like wavy, breathy kind of I can't explain it. Just listen to the beginning of Dark Side of the Moon, like the song Breathe and other songs. The pedal steel guitar is kind of like this weird, fluid, pulsating feel in the back of the song. And here, Paul Franklin does that, but he doesn't do it like Gilmour did it in Dark Side of the Moon. He's just doing it in his own way. And I think it's I think it's second to none. I would listen to this type of pedal steel guitar all day. And you can tell by that solo, and I'm going to go back. You can listen to his note choice, no choice. Right there. I don't know what that was. It was a dissident note. Ban 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 you. I don't know what note that was. I don't know what note that was. It could have been the blues note, but it didn't sound like it. He's good because he's able to insert dissident notes into a beautiful solo, notes that are not in the scale, notes that technically don't belong, but he's able to insert them so that you just accept it. You know, it works. I don't think it's the blues note.
It doesn't matter what I say, what I do, what I think. You can lead a horse to water, you can make him drink. You'll go your own sweet,
Oh, I love that.
your own sweet way. I say you'll go your own sweet, your own sweet way.
All right, so the song is about the change, and you'll see what I'm talking about when the song changes. Um, and I love when he goes back into the thing and the he goes back into the verses, and the pedal steel guitar is like now, 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 and it's like comping in between words that Mark Knopfler is singing, and that's
You can lead a
it.
horse.
Almost sounds like an organ, but it's not.
It doesn't matter what I say, what I do, what I think. You can lead a horse to water, you can make him drink. You'll go your own sweet,
Perfect.
your own sweet way.
Okay, now listen to how the song changes.
I say you'll go
After
your
this
own
chorus.
sweet, your own sweet way.
Ready? Not yet. Oh no. So the drums and the bass are basically saying we're going to change the tune of this song. We're going to change everything. Now you hear a hi-hat, you hear a snare on the drums, right? And then the bass comes in, and the bass is no longer playing just notes here and there. It's picked up more of a walking bass line. Da-doom, da-boom, boom, da-boom, boom, right? So listen to how the drums and the bass, the percussion and the bass, right at that moment, they say we're changing the whole feel of the song. We're going to change.
Your own sweet way. I say,
So in the right ear, you do hear a hi-hat. You do hear it.
go your own sweet,
There's no snare drum.
your own sweet way.
I love that. Doot, doot. I love that. Now you hear a ride. That's a ride. So you hear a ride in the left ear, a snare drum. And now here comes Mark Knopfler. That keyboard sound too. Oh God. So, all right. I love the back and forth between Mark Knopfler and the keyboard player here. And that slide that he does on the keyboard, I just think is awesome. I think they call that slide like a glissando, you know. We do it on the saxophone too. Um, but on the keyboard, that type of move isn't necessarily out of the key you're playing in. Now he's playing in E minor, I believe, so it's kind of easy to slide all the way down the white keys because the only non-white key is the F sharp, you know, and if you slide over the F, who cares? It's not going to sound dissonant because you're sliding through so many notes at such a fast pace. But like with with the saxophone, when you do something like that, now you can do a fall where you just drop down, um, and you don't necessarily need to be hitting notes out of the scale, but it's good if you do. Oh God, I love that. Slide back into it. All right, I can talk about the genius behind this song for hours, and I can listen to it over and over and over again. I think it's a song, in my opinion, I think it's a song that stands out. You have a keyboard player or an organ player, a pedal steel guitar player, and a guitar player um, that the synergy between the three of them, the energy between them, the confidence that Mark Knopfler has in his musicians. And I like when I see a musician who looks at another musician and says, they're not just a tool, they're an artist. Express yourself within my song. And an artist, for the most part, it depends on the type of communication you have and everything else. When you're an artist and someone says to you, can you solo over this song? If that song is something that you identify with and enjoy and love, and you want to express yourself freely throughout the confines of that song, 99 times out of 100, if you're a seasoned musician, you're going to play something that you think fits it, that you think sounds good. And the songwriter and the producer are probably not going to be like, that's not what we're looking for. Now, that does happen. It happens a lot, and it certainly happens a lot in pop because pop, they're almost looking for a very specific sound. And, you play that guitar solo a certain way, there might be a producer who says, that's not the sound I had in mind, you know? But usually amongst musicians, when you have a musician who's a songwriter and a producer, and they take a very able musician and say, I need a cello solo for these 18 measures or these 24 measures, whatever the case is. And they trust that musician. Usually the cello solo that cellist writes stays. And I've done that with music that I've written. I usually don't say, change your solo. I don't think I would do that to anyone. I've done work for people and they say, wow, that's great. Thanks. You know, when I do work for someone, especially if it's free, which I've done a lot of, and then I spend 5 hours on it, and then someone gets back to me and says, this doesn't sound right, that doesn't sound right, change this, change that, change. My desire to create within a song goes away. But I'm also a different type of musician. I like to improvise. I don't have the best ear. I need to understand that about myself as a musician. So give me the chord changes. If you give me a song with no chord changes and say, play whatever, you're going to get whatever. But if I get chord changes, I write them down on a marker board and I transpose them from from C, which is what keyboard is, or guitar is written in the key of C, and I transpose that into an E flat instrument because that's what I play on the saxophone. And then I will write my solo based on the outline that you've given me. So every musician is different. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but and I don't even know if Mark Knopfler alone wrote this song. I mean, I can check it right now. Let's check it out. All right, so this is a website that I pulled up. I don't know why it's transparent. I'll have to go into the settings and see why that's the case. But it does say it, you can barely read it, but it does say that the song was written by Mark Knopfler. So this would be an example of a guy who wrote a song. He takes a song and then says, I want to incorporate some great musicians into it. And he probably gave the keyboard player and the pedal steel guitar player some leeway to create. And they probably practiced the song a few times and came up with that synergy, that great communication between the musicians in order to sound that way. So, anyways, I just had to bring this song out because I've been a huge fan of Mark Knopfler. I've been a huge fan of the song for a long time. I've never done an episode about it, of B sharp and C. And today I just had to. I had to do this episode. So I thank everyone for watching. And until next time, keep it groovy.